The first thing I always have people do, and that I did myself also, was start on breath work. Because as you know, if you've had a baby, no matter how that baby comes out, they've been in there for up to 9 months, right? Maybe a little bit more. And so what happens is your diaphragm gets really kind of crammed and we lose a lot of endurance with our breath.
You're listening to episode number 99 of the MomTalks with Christa podcast. Thank you for joining me this week, guys. We have another exciting episode. I have Dr. Karlie Causey here, co-founder of the brand Jen and Keri. They created a postpartum pumping and nursing sports bra for the everyday working out mom, for all those athletes out there, and this is the sports bra for you. And we're going to talk about how to build foundations to stay active in postpartum and reclaim your identity beyond motherhood. So we're going to get to that in just a minute, but first, some community notes. Our next Peanut Pod is October 6th, and this one is titled Feeling Alone: Simple Ways to Create Connections. And I posted in our MomTalks group and asking moms to share what thing they would like me to discuss in the upcoming episode. And the thing I was gathering the most was loneliness. How can we fight through loneliness? How can we help loneliness? And we've talked similarly before about the difference between being alone versus being lonely and some tips there, but this, I want to talk about more about connections and how we can create connections. So kind of going into this a little bit more, according to a study conducted by Mom Central Consulting and Gather Moms, 60% of mothers with children under the age of 5 years old experience loneliness to some extent. And then 68% of new moms feel cut off from family and friends. And so when we have our peanut pods, this is like a really staggering statistic, that a lot of moms face, because we don't always think about how much our lives change when we enter this new step. Maybe friends we had from a previous time in our lives are like no longer calling us anymore, or we just don't really find we relate to them anymore. We have to kind of adjust and find what's going to work for us in this new chapter. And sometimes that's the scariest thing, to ask ourselves, like, okay, I'm not friends with this person anymore. Why? Or why are the family dynamics changing? Something's off. And so when we have our peanut pod discussions, many moms report these friendship changes, or trying so hard to still make a friendship work where it feels like they're grabbing at the seams and trying to make things, stick together. Family dynamics are changing and so on. So this pod, we're going to talk a little bit more about things you can control, and kind of looking inward and being like, okay, is this something that still serves me? Because a lot of the times when people talk about old friendships, we kind of realize maybe it's something that no longer is serving you, but you're trying to hold on to it because it's from so long ago, or you have a history together. Another thing is with family dynamics, bringing a new baby in. Different personalities might come out, or different tendencies might come out that you didn't see before. And so this kind of all goes into the setting boundaries and making sure you're comfortable with your boundaries, and also on the other side, respecting other people's boundaries. We're going to talk about what connections you can make each day that help your new mom experience and work together to feel more connected. And I'm going to leave a lot of it, of course, for the peanut pod, but I just want you guys to know that there is a space for you. So if you're listening to this and you're feeling disconnected, you're feeling alone, you're feeling like things have changed and you're not really sure how to grasp it, we've got a space for you. We're here for you. So if you want to join the Peanut Pod, join us in our Facebook group. We've got all the links in our show notes, ways to connect. And sometimes just clicking that link is the first step. So if I can just encourage you to do one thing, find one space. I know it can be overwhelming online. There's like a million groups to join, a million different things to look at. So if there's just one way you can connect with someone today, try that. But we'll be talking about that on October 6th. And then that will be the only pod for the month of October. So I highly encourage you to join if you can. Typically, these are the first and third Thursday of the month, but I'll actually be in New York that last week. So we'll be taking that week off from filming. However, if you need to connect, we are always connecting in our MomTalks with Christa group, or our Facebook group for Mommy Knows Best. It's a new mom breastfeeding and more support group. So find ways to connect, and we always have really great discussions as well. So if something's on your mind, you have a question, don't be left alone. We got you. Finally, if you are currently pregnant or planning on breastfeeding, I should say, and or planning on breastfeeding, but don't know where to start, we have created a free breastfeeding starter pack for you. So download it. You can download for all those that are interested. It goes right into your inbox, super easy to get. And you'll find 3 different sections: the stages of breast milk, the breastfeeding starter pack, which includes a list of recommended things to include in your starter pack just to kind of get off on the right foot. And then finally, tips for boosting your milk supply, because that's like the number one question we get, right? Being a breastfeeding company, how can I boost my milk supply? So we're going to share some tips in there as well. Our favorite tips. These are our top questions that we put in an easy downloadable file. So you can look for the link in the show notes and you'll get that all there. And then you get other updates and fun stuff from us. All right. I know I've blabbed enough in this intro. On to our interview with Dr. Karlie Causey. It's a great discussion. We're going to go into the intro in just a second, all about reclaiming your identity beyond motherhood, which I think kind of ties into that loneliness thing. So finding your purpose, finding what makes you happy, sparks your joy, and all that good stuff. All right. So without further ado, please enjoy this week's interview. All right, guys, today on the podcast, we have Karlie Causey, who is the co-founder of the postpartum active line called Jen and Keri. They have postpartum nursing bras that, through her own experience with nursing and being an athlete, decided that there was a void in the market, that something needed to be created. And so we talk all about how to build foundations to stay active postpartum. And she's got a word of advice for moms that are in that stage, that are kind of either losing themselves or are wanting to regain their identity in postpartum, and whether that means get back into being active or trying to find something new. She's got a lot of great tips. And this is great for those that maybe need a little encouragement or tips for moving their body and connecting with their body in a new way and loving and appreciating all that their body has been through. So we have a great conversation there. Can't wait for you guys to listen. And of course, stay for the very end for our MomTales of the week. We got a fun responses for you guys this week. Just to get started, can you kind of tell everyone who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah, of course. So my name is Dr. Karlie Causey. I'm a sports chiropractor here in Seattle, Washington. I'm also a certified strength and conditioning specialist, a CrossFit level 2 coach, a postpartum athleticism coach. So I have a lot of coaching hats I wear too. And I also own a company called Jen and Keri, which is a postpartum athletic wear company. And probably most importantly, I'm the mother of 2 boys, almost 3 years old and 12 weeks old.
Wow. Awesome. I know we want to talk a lot today about, keeping active and having foundations for being active in your postpartum journey. So I know we kind of want to talk a lot about what women can kind of do for themselves during their postpartum journey. So kind of first, I know a lot of women talk about losing themselves in their, through becoming moms, pregnancy, labor, and then that postpartum part. So how can women start making steps to kind of reclaim their identity during all that?
That's a great question. I think something that we all need to think about, right? What I find is, if you can start thinking about some of those things during your pregnancy, even potentially before, while you're trying to get pregnant, I always just encourage women to make as much of a plan as they can before the baby comes, because once the baby comes, as so many people know, like everything is out the window. So you want to have as much kind of set up for success prior to the baby arriving. So what that can look like is really sitting down and thinking, okay, what is important to me? What are my priorities? Do I love to cook? Do I love to work out? Do I love to draw? Like whatever you love to do. And then just trying to figure out, okay, what's that going to look like when a baby enters my world, And of course, those first couple weeks, just throw those out the window, right? But then we start thinking about once, you're getting 2, 3, 4, 5, a few more weeks into postpartum where you're starting to feel a little bit more confident maybe. And then just sitting down and saying, okay, now how can I make some of these things happen? Does it mean I have 5 minutes a day that I kind of block off to, if you like to work out, do some rehab exercises? Is it, if you like to cook, you work out with your partner a little bit of time where you can make sure that you can do some cooking? So I think it's looking at your priorities and then looking at how you work best. Does it mean that you need little pieces of time throughout the day, or do you need kind of one bigger chunk of time? Like, what's going to make you more successful? And I think once you can start evaluating that about yourself, then you can say, okay, it's not going to be perfect because nothing is perfect, especially in early postpartum, but how can I work towards at least feeling like I have these pieces of myself and that I can nurture those as the baby is growing, and as, maybe you're getting a little more of your independence back and not just having a baby constantly attached to you.
And like, I'm curious too, like, so you started this company, Jen and Keri, to kind of almost help in that postpartum journey to, be active and keep up with your physical like journey of kind of working out or staying active. And so what was it for you, like that moment where you're like, I can kind of turn into, I'm this athlete, I want to stay active. And so in postpartum, now I want to do something for all moms. Like, what was that point for you? Or was it kind of over time, or did you know, like all along, like, oh, I wanted to create, a company where, moms can still feel like they're active in their new bodies and embrace that side?
In my chiropractic practice, I work with a lot of pregnant and postpartum women. And over the last few years, that has transitioned a lot into, I would say, maybe 70, 75% of that patient base. And so I was working a lot with this population, and I developed, after my first son, I developed a postpartum plan online. That was sort of right when COVID, hit. And so people weren't coming into the office, and I saw that women needed some help in this kind of rehab journey to kind of get back to athletic activity. And then once my son came, actually, is when the idea for Jen and Keri started. I was just kind of getting back into the gym and working out. And I was complaining to my business partner now, Jess, who's one of my closest friends, about the sports bras and how I just hated the nursing clips. You put a barbell on there and it digs into you, you run and you're like afraid it's going to pop open. And so we were kind of scouring the internet looking for a bra that just looked like a regular bra, and we couldn't find it. We found, zippers and Velcro and buttons and, the clips and that kind of thing. And so we started designing one with the intention that, yes, it's just a sports bra, but for me, it was like I wanted to be in the gym with with the class working out for an hour and just feel like it was my time, and like I was just another one of the athletes in the class. Being a nursing mom is amazing and I love it. I am again right now, but there's just something about it that I wanted to like not broadcast to the world, that I just wanted to feel like me. And so that was really sort of the empowering feeling that, like, as we started developing this bra, that I started to feel like, okay, I can like nurse my baby and get right back into a workout and then nurse my baby again if I need, however that looks. And it was kind of funny because as we were developing it, we had some friends try it on that aren't moms, and they were like sort of wondering what the big deal was because they didn't realize it was a nursing bra. They thought it just looked like a regular bra. And we're like, yes, that's what we want you to think. Like, it looks just like a regular bra. Like, you don't even know. You just said exactly what we're like hoping for. So yeah, that was kind of the piece. That was the moment where Jess and I were like, okay, well, now we're working so hard to make sure that this bra looks sleek and stylish and is super soft and comfortable, and that it looks just like a regular bra, doesn't have these clips and buttons and stuff. And now we're just gonna kind of carry on and develop it. And we have some other stuff in the works now, as far as developing other things, because this bra is for athletics, it's for high impact activity. It's been really fun, but I didn't know all along. It was kind of like a lot of things, I saw this kind of hole in something that I needed, and just thought, like, I can't be the only one that feels this way.
Yeah, I think definitely like going through it yourself and then being like, this is what the market's kind of lacking right now. This is what we need. And I'm curious, like, how now that it's like out there and like other moms have tried it, what has the response been? I mean, I'm sure there's so many other people in the same, market as you that are like, this is what, we needed.
Yeah, we've had such a great response. It's been really awesome. We've had some cool stories. We had a mom do a really high level CrossFit competition and wearing the bra on the competition floor. We had a mom like tandem feeding her twins at the end of I think she did a 10K. And so just some really cool stories like that. But what's even cooler is just seeing, you know, women feel like, okay, it's sort of silly. It's just a bra, but like if it makes me feel like a little more confident and comfortable in my body, then it makes me feel like I want to work out, and I want to just start that process of whatever that looks like for you, getting back to walking, running, whatever, weightlifting, swimming. And so that's been really fun. And we've had some moms actually, since it's starting to be summer, do some swimming in it, which has been kind of cool too, seeing them out by the pool, in their sports bra. So it is, like I said, it's a tight bra. So we've had some feedback that, I mean, it's not to be worn all day. So we sometimes have people size up and then they can kind of wear it all day, but we're working on that. We're working on a more kind of all day bra, but it's taking a little longer, as everything does, than we want. So
definitely. And so I have to ask, so your name's Karlie and your friend's name is Jess. So where did the name like Keri and Jen and Keri come from for the company?
I know, it's kind of funny. So when we were trying to name our company, notoriously people get our names wrong and they always call her Jen and they always call me Keri, like so often. And so we sort of were like, that's kind of funny. Like Jen and Keri are like kind of our like pseudo personalities. And they're like your cool, fun mom friends who like know all the, all the info and the insights. And so we named it that. But now obviously we've like made the problem worse because everyone calls us Jen and Keri. Like now no one is ever going to get our names right. So
I know, it was funny because when I was like putting together like questions and I saw on your website Jess and I was like, wait, am I getting the names wrong? No,
yeah, I know.
But it's like, it makes for a good story though too.
Yeah.
And I know, I think it's cool. And so what was that like moment for you, I guess, kind of like getting it, you said you went through like the design process and everything. So what was that moment for you being able to actually like see it and like see it kind of come to fruition and then being able to use your own product for the first time?
Yeah.
That's gotta be like a cool, like full circle moment.
It was pretty cool. I mean, it took a long time for us to find the right fabric. There's multi-layer. So the way it works is it kind of pulls up and there's an inner layer that pulls down so that you can nurse and pump in it. So we really wanted like a soft, we call it like buttery fabric. And so that took some rounds. So it was a little anticlimactic because we had all these bras from, these different rounds of sort of, trying out different fabrics. And then finally we found like the one we wanted and we're like, okay, this is it, and then the best part really was when, now that I'm nursing, that I can use it. And I was like, the first time I pumped in it, I was like, oh my gosh, it works so good for pumping. And we'd had some good feedback, because it is a little compressive, that it kind of helps the milk come out a little bit better instead of just like sitting the pump there. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try it with the pod pumps and I'm going to try it with the kind of old school flange pumps. And okay, now let me try this. And Jess was like, oh man, this is good timing, So it's been out for a little while, but it's been really fun to be able to actually use it.
And so this all kind of goes into kind of like the topic where we're talking about, building foundations for staying active or finding your identity again in postpartum. Because like I think a lot of times, like once, our bodies change and then we're, kind of going through this whole new chapter of our lives, it's kind of hard to find what's either missing or what we used to have or what we want for the future. So what advice do you have for women listening that are kind of in that spot right now where they're like, I don't really know who I am anymore. I'm kind of in this new spot. Like I used to like these things, but I don't know if that fits into my life anymore. Just kind of, going through their day-to-day tasks, not really sure what's next or who they are.
Yeah, there's some simple things that I like to have people start with. And it sounds really sort of silly, but I'll explain why I say this. The first thing I always have people do, and that I did myself also, was start on breath work. Because as you know, if you've had a baby, no matter how that baby comes out, they've been in there for up to 9 months, right? Maybe a little bit more. And so what happens is your diaphragm gets really kind of crammed and we lose a lot of endurance with our breath. And so there is some training that needs to happen to sort of reintegrate your breath with your body. And when we think about our core, the top of our core, if we think about it as kind of a barrel, the top is the diaphragm and the bottom is the pelvic floor. And then we have kind of all the muscles, low back muscles, abdominal muscles surrounding that. So we have the top of the core has been kind of crammed up. The bottom of the core has been stretched out, whether the baby came out vaginally or not. It's been still had some additional stress on it for quite some time. And so we have to do some work to sort of reintegrate those and get those things to work together in a good movement pattern. And so the first thing I have people start doing is some deep belly breathing and breath work to reconnect their breath with their body. And what I find is that if you can start with that really early on, even a few days postpartum, there's no you don't need to wait 6 weeks to start doing breath work. You find that it helps with anxiety, stress, all that stuff. But B, what happens is you can start to feel, okay, these muscles have been so stretched. So now I can start to feel how I can try to engage them again. I can start to try to see if I can do a little pelvic floor lift. And it just starts to feel more like your body, which I think is the first step in sort of getting back to feeling more like you, at least physically, right? And the breath work, depending on who you talk to, also is going to help you mentally kind of reconnect with yourself as well. And it's something that I sort of poo-pooed before I had kids. I like to go hard and fast, and this slow, steady breath work. I was like, oh, that's so boring, but it is so important. And if you lay that foundation early on, I think it really helps build from there so that you can build back into some strength and feeling stable and, restabilizing the pelvis after having a baby. And so I think it really, really starts there.
Mm-hmm. I think that's amazing. I think I talk about it a lot, in our Facebook room. We do a Facebook room once a month, and how we underestimate the power of breath. And I think we think it's oh, we know how to breathe. It's normal. We weren't taught how to breathe.
Right.
You breathe,
right.
But we underestimate the power of actually doing controlled breath work, you're talking about, or actually acknowledging we're breathing, or we're part of our body, and I feel it's more of almost leaning into your senses a little bit. It's when you're in that autopilot zone, you're kind of just moving along. You're not thinking about breathing or blinking or any of that stuff. But if you're actually thinking about it, I think it's more intentional and can a lot more from it.
And the other thing you can do kind of early on, once you start doing some of that breath work, is start to kind of feel your transverse abdominis engage. That's another one I like to start people with really early. And transverse abdominis is a big kind of flat muscle that wraps around the front of your abdomen. It actually, you use it to help push the baby out. And so it gets super stretched, as you can imagine. And so what I have people do there is, now once we've started some breathing exercises, then what I'll have them do, there's a few different cues, but one of my favorite is to sort of have them try to pull their two hip bones together as they breathe in, take a breath in, and then as they breathe out, they try to pull those hip bones together. And the muscle that sort of, obviously can't really pull the hip bones together, but the muscle that activates when you try to do that is that transverse abdominis. And so starting to work on some intentional, like you're saying, some intentional breathing and okay, now I can feel this muscle. And it's a really slight movement. A lot of people, especially who are athletic, they want to really overdo it. And so they engage down everything. And it's really much more slight movement. So I always tell people who have been in athletics, okay, do what you think you should do and then back off 50%. And that's probably doing it right, So I think, just being intentional about things and starting off slow and steady and knowing that it's going to feel a little bit boring and a little bit slow. I always warn people of that, because if you go in thinking I'm going to do this for 3 days and I'm going to be good to go, you're going to be sorely disappointed,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's also important, is going in with the right expectations of that sort of work at the beginning.
Awesome. And so what are some other so after the breath work exercises, what are some other once they're kind of past that point, or maybe they continue it for a while, what are some other exercises that moms can kind of do in the postpartum to kind of start kind of feeling like they're getting stronger and working on their body throughout all that?
There's so many different things people could be doing. I really like to, like I said, I made this postpartum, it's called Postpartum Restoration Plan. And I developed it because there's so much stuff out there that people can do. And I think it's overwhelming, And so what I wanted to do was say, like, here's 3 or 4 things you can do, a few times a week and start to build back some strength. And we have to remember that it's not just around the pelvis that we need to kind of restabilize. It's our upper back, because now you're like hunched forward like this so much, whether you're nursing or even just bottle feeding, everything is like forward, 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 And so there's like stretches for the chest that we can be doing. I think that's one thing that moms don't really think about. So especially maybe at the end of the day, laying over like a yoga ball with their arms open, or a foam roller, or even just a stack of pillows, just to kind of open up through the chest. That can be super helpful. And that will help with if you're having any neck pain too, because when we're hunched forward with our upper back, our neck kind of comes up into this extended position. So that's a lot of stress on our neck too. And then strengthening around the pelvis, of course, working on the glutes, remembering that the glutes are actually connected to the pelvic floor. And so that's also considered part of your core. So working the glutes with like some simple, I say simple, but they don't always feel simple when you're newly postpartum, but like some glute bridges or some like Superman holds where you're on your tummy, and kind of using your low back to pick your legs and your upper body up off the floor a bit. Those kind of things can be super helpful just to start re-engaging the posterior chain of your body. And then another thing that I really like to have people start doing is more functional stuff. So, starting in a kneeling position, and then going up to like a lunge to stand and then back down, because that's something we do a lot as new moms, right? We're like getting up off the floor and down a lot. And so thinking about those activities of, okay, let me like brace my core, use my breathing, and then do these transitional movements and make sure that I feel stable and use them as a rehab exercise of something that you're going to be doing anyways.
Yeah, amazing. I think you make a good point with kind of like starting slow and not rushing to the finish line, because there really is no finish line, right? It's kind of
right.
seeing what works best for you in these moments and listening to your body is probably like the most important thing. And so what tips do you have for moms to kind of help boost this postpartum like recovery, getting themselves back to, and I guess I want to refrain from saying like the bounce back or get them back, but I guess more to where they want to be, recovery in the safest way, in the healthiest way, to where they feel, at peace with, their body and the journey it's kind of been through.
Yeah. Well, I think you said it already a little bit, which is the starting slow and listening to your body is important, and knowing that this is your journey and each postpartum journey is different, whether it's you have 4 kids or this is your first kid, you can't compare it to your friends or your sisters or your moms or whatever. It's like everyone's is different. And so leaning into that a little bit and knowing that like whatever you want to do and whatever you're feeling is what you should do, And so if you want to get back to exercise quickly, relatively speaking, you can do that. If you want to take a long time and like focus on other things, you can do that. I always try to encourage women to do like the rehab piece at least, because I want to empower them and have them feel strong and confident and comfortable in their bodies. And I don't want them to be dealing with aches and pains that they could have sort of avoided, So that's one thing. And then I think during pregnancy, there's some stuff we can do just to make recovery easier on the mom. And that's just limiting stuff in exercise, like sit-ups, anything that's like crunching the core together. I usually have people start limiting that after the first trimester, and substituting it out with different exercises, because we start to do this cost benefit analysis thing, right? Like, sure, maybe you can do these movements, but what's the benefit of it? Often it can put a lot of pressure through your abdomen. It can just stretch that linea alba and which is the fascia kind of right down the middle of the abs, and make it harder to recover that after, once the baby comes out, once you're trying to do this recovery to kind of close or make functionally that separation better, you know?
Mhm.
So there's stuff like that too that we want to limit during pregnancy, not because it's hurtful necessarily, but just because it might make it easier in the postpartum phase for us to do recovery and to do rehab and to gain that strength back quickly.
That's amazing. Those are great tips. And I noticed, like, while kind of looking at your website, you say every mom is an athlete. And so for the ones listening right now that are like, I am not an athlete, I can't do those things, basically discounting themselves or saying like, that's not me. What do you say to moms that are kind of in that mind frame right now and saying that about, themselves?
So our slogan, our motto, every mom is an athlete, it means a couple things. So one, to us, it means we want to help empower women to get back to doing whatever activities it is that they love to do. And for some, that's maybe just walking, right? But what we want to say is that you're a mom and you can do all the athletic things you did before, maybe differently, right? But you can do them. And so we want to, in whatever ways I can, I mean, really, this is like all I do in my life, right? With my like chiropractic practice and my postpartum plan, and now this bra company or sportswear company. Like, I just want to help you do whatever it is that you want to do athletically. So that's one piece. And it's cool now that we're seeing some of these professional athletes, a lot of professional athletes, beach volleyball players, soccer players, tennis players, basketball players, having kids and come back to this high level of athletics. I just think it's so inspiring and amazing. But the other piece of that, which speaks more to what kind of you're asking about, is that being a mom is an athletic endeavor. And I don't care if you don't think you're an athlete, you are doing athletic things. First of all, birth is like the most athletic event that has ever been created, you know? And so you went through that process. And whether you use drugs or had a C-section or had a completely natural vaginal birth, whatever, no matter what, you went through an athletic process and a traumatic process. So that's one piece. The second piece is that what we're doing on a daily basis with our babies and with our kids is athletic. So when you think about bending over to put your baby in the crib, picking the baby up out of the crib, that's a deadlift or a hip hinge pattern. So we can look straight into athletics and see, okay, that is actually a weightlifting movement. You know, when you go to pick the car seat up and put it in the car and it weighs 30 pounds, the baby in it, you're, doing essentially, you're lifting up off the ground and pressing the car seat. So some of these things that we do every day, I mentioned getting up and down off the floor, you're doing lunges, just like regularly, these are athletic movements. And then you think about the mom with like the car seat and the toddler and the coffee and the cart and like the backpack and like all these things that she's carrying and doing. And just like, not like it's no big deal, because it is, but like as moms, we get used to doing that just like all day, every day. And that is super athletic to be able to stabilize in those positions and, balance and carry and push and pull. Those are all athletic movements too. So that's the other piece of it that we want to consider, is that you're an athlete, whether you want to be or not. And you don't have to necessarily lean into that if you don't want to, but the stuff you're doing with your babies and your kids are athletic movements. And we just want to encourage you to feel confident and comfortable in those movements.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of like how you can view yourself, you can say like, oh, I didn't do anything all day. And it's like, when you actually look and break it down, how many things you did in one day, you did million things, and how you took care of those around you. And yeah, it's definitely how you can kind of like angle your viewpoint, I guess. So I love that you say that, because I think especially in the postpartum, it's easy to, look at our bodies and be like, oh, it looks different than before, or I can't do this, instead of saying what you can do and the things that you are doing and looking on the more positive side of things. I think we're so quick to like judge ourselves and say like, oh, I can't do that,
so quick. And yeah, it's nothing to do with how you look, really, it's not, it's all to do with feeling confident and stable and comfortable in your body at whatever size it is. And like you said, giving credit to all that you're doing, because I think you're right that we don't, even with a brand new baby and you're just at home and like, you're like, oh my gosh, all I did was like nurse this baby all day long. And my house is a disaster and like nothing else got done. There's nothing to eat, like nothing. Well, okay, you also just produced breast milk all day long. Like imagine what your metabolism is doing, so there's all
Mhm.
these pieces I think that you're right that we're not giving credit to. And so it's also a piece of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what is next for Jen and Keri, like down the line? I know you probably can't say too much if you're working on stuff you want to release. So just
Yeah.
in general or whatever you can say.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our goal is to eventually create a whole postpartum brand of activewear, and we've gotten some great feedback from moms of what they would like and what they need and what things that are already out there that they're like, I like this, but this is how it could be better. And so we're always listening to that. We are a small startup company, and so we're working on stuff, but I wish we could just like do all these projects at once. But we do have a couple of cool projects we're working on, for, like I said, more of a medium, we call it a medium impact bra that you can wear all day. Um, and so that hopefully eventually is coming out soon. And then, yeah, underwear, leggings, shorts, like we'd love to get into all of that eventually. So.
Awesome. I love it. And so where can everyone find more information about the clothes you guys offer and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so we're online at jenandkeri.com. It's Jen and Keri. Same on Instagram, Jen and Keri. And then my personal Instagram is Dr. Karlie, Karlie. And so basically between those three spots, you can find everything you need to know about me and also the company.
Awesome. And so I always like to end these with fun thinking question, I call it. And so
Yeah.
if you could have a billboard made today where you could share one tip with moms everywhere, what would you have it say?
I know. I saw this question and I'm like, oh, there's so many things I want to say.
Right.
Like how many lions can be on the billboard? No, I think my main message would be that you are strong and powerful and you can do anything that you want to do athletically, even as a mom. And it's all about finding the right team, the right priorities, and the right tools to make that happen.
Awesome. I love that. And where, I know you said the email address, or I'm sorry, your website, but
Yep.
what other things can people expect to see on your social media? Like what other things do you post about that moms
Yeah.
can kind of find helpful?
Totally. Yeah. We post a lot of workout stuff I do personally and also on the Jen and Keri site as far as like rehabbing after having a baby. So kind of that early postpartum phase, some things that you can do, some simple workouts also. We post some funny stuff. It's mostly surrounded, kind of centered around those things, just pregnancy and postpartum kind of athletic things that moms can do and can make part of their day.
Awesome. Love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was so great talking with you. And I think the work you're doing is amazing because, like you said, like seeing that void in the market, seeing something that's out there, it just means that there's so many other women that are thinking the same way. So it's amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Thanks.
All right, guys, it's time for our Mom Tales of the week. And this week I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently and reading directly off the post on my phone because there were so many good ones. And yeah, I just cannot wait to share these. They were so fun to read. So this week's question was, tell me your weirdest pregnancy craving. I guess it's not a question, but you get the point. Okay, so I'm gonna go through and just read some of them. I'm gonna make them anonymous I'm just gonna read the first name, and here we go. Rachel. It's not exactly weird, but it definitely defied all logic. When I was pregnant with my youngest, I had acid reflux. So bad that even water made me super miserable. I craved spicy buffalo chicken like crazy, and somehow it was one of the only things that didn't make my acid reflux flare up. That is really interesting. And that's kind of like that thing of where you just have to lean into your cravings because it's your body maybe telling you like, I need this right now. I need it. So I'm glad you found that one thing that really worked for your body. Here we go. Number 2, Bridget. Pickles, wait for it, and chocolate chip ice cream. Yes, together. Love pickles, love chocolate chip ice cream. Could I eat them together? Probably not. In fact, the thought of it is kind of grossing me out right now. So I don't know. But hey, you gotta go with what works for you. There are weirder things, I think. So I don't know if that's maybe the weirdest. Number 3, Danielle. Green grapes and chocolate icing. Okay. I could kind of get on board with that because I've done like, for different holidays, I've done strawberries with cheesecake icing. I know grapes are different than strawberries, but I'm thinking like grapes, that actually might be kind of good. Okay, number 4, Megan. Mashed potatoes on top of French toast and marshmallows dipped in Cool Whip. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. Mashed potatoes on top of French toast. I'm thinking these are 2 different meals. I'm hoping. They're gotta be 2 different ones. So mashed potatoes on top of French toast. So the question is, do you put gravy or do you put syrup on top? Or nothing? Do you just kind of see what, I don't know, eat it dry? Because I feel like without the toppings, it might not be that bad. It's like eating like bread with your mashed potatoes, right? And then marshmallows dipped in Cool Whip. I mean, that sounds amazing. All right, Natasha, pizza dipped in gravy. Here's the gravy. Tomato sangies. Is that a word I should know? I don't know what that is. Oranges, pickles, and ice cream. Okay, question. Is this all together? Is this like a mumbo jumbo pizza dipped in gravy, tomato, whatever that is, oranges, pickles, and ice cream, or it's just like those are the things you crave? Because separate, yeah, those are not bad. I'm not a big gravy person, so pizza dipped in gravy is probably not my thing, but other than that, makes sense. Kathy, Doritos dipped in cottage cheese. Okay. It is a little weird, but like I love cottage cheese. And I feel like they're in the same family. I mean, it depends on what Doritos. Are you going nacho Doritos? Are you going Cool Ranch? It could be okay. It could be okay. All right, we hear this a lot with, pregnancy. Taylin says ice. There's a lot of, just like that crunch. There's a lot of pregnant women that like that crunch. Alma says hot Cheetos dipped in grape jelly. I mean, does it actually stick on there when you... I'm like, where does this craving come from? I'm so curious. Christa says raw white onion. Just thinking about eating one like an apple made my mouth water. There are so many good ones in here, guys. I could just keep reading them. Let's see. I'm just going to scroll to the end and read one more. Oh, this is interesting. Okay. Artie says, we're going to end on this one. Raw beef, and it smelled like strawberries. I'm a vegetarian for generations. That is just like how? I mean, I've actually heard of a couple people that have been vegetarians like their whole life, and then they get pregnant and they want meat. Not raw meat, but I've heard like they'll crave a burger. And I feel like that's like their body saying like, okay, you need more protein or something. But raw meat, hopefully you never ate it because, but it's smelling like strawberries. I'm so curious. Like, I know scents can change, your taste buds can change. So curious. All right, guys. I could have read these forever. There were so many good ones. We have a thread going in our Mommy Knows Best Facebook page. If you're not a part of the group, click the link in our show notes and join it. We ask so many fun questions in there, and we get some fun responses. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me today, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much for watching this episode. But before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you get notified of future episodes. We release new episodes every single Wednesday. See you next week.